Welcome back, everybody, to the Success Beyond Strategy podcast. I have been truly, and this is why this episode is on this theme, tapping in and really focusing on creativity. And I wanted to do an episode on it. And I'm sitting here, it's actually morning time when I'm recording, which is not typical for me. So I have a wonderful cup of coffee, and I typically have turned it off while I'm recording, have music in the background, and really tapping into my creativity and my intuition. And I've already talked about the intuition piece, and a lot of it is very, very aligned, very similar when you think about the two, or when you're really talking to somebody about the two. And I wanted to record this and share because there's so many different ways to tap into creativity. And one of them has actually surprised me, to be completely honest. And I'm very excited because I've mentioned this in a previous episode very, very, very briefly. But I wanted to share a little bit more about it, along with all the other things that have been coming up for myself. Because I'll be honest, and I started the artist way, and actually, to be completely transparent, I started the artist way probably 6-7 weeks ago, but I am only on week 3. So with travel and then just everything going on, I've taken my time though. Like, I know it's a 12-week journey, and I'm really just taking it bite by bite and really soaking in everything I'm reading. But so Julia Cameron, who writes the book, talks about shadow artists and artists that are hiding behind and who don't show up and aren't really leaning into maybe their creative self. And the reason being, for me personally, that I've realized is just I was a doer. I was an action taker in getting shit done, basically. I am the one to pour in and say yes and do things for other people and for my jobs, and to make sure that I am productive in the way to make me worthy of the money I'm making, to make me worthy of the job that I've had, to make me worthy of the business that I currently have. And really stripping a lot of that away, I've been working on this year. My word literally this year has been worthy. But if you go way back to my first episode, actually this year, I talk about the difference in just saying I am worthy versus truly embodying it. And now that's a lot of what I feel like I'm doing with creativity. Is I finally, about a year and a half ago, started to call myself creative for the first time. And now I'm really trying to embody that creativity and the things that I loved as a child, the things I love to do, the playing, the having fun, and what does that look like now for me? Before I dive into that, I did want to read one quote that Julia had in her book, and I might read another one later on. But this one in particular stood out to me because I've talked about this a lot with especially some of my friends here locally about how I need more play and more fun in my life. And they do. And like, how do we do that? And it's sometimes really hard to break those habits when you haven't been doing it for so long. And what is fun for you, and what is play, and what is creative? So Julia says this: creativity is play, but for shadow artists, learning to allow themselves to play is hard work. And it's such a simple sentence, but it's so freaking true. It is so hard for me to learn to play again. Playing is like actually hard work. It actually is kind of draining for me sometimes. Sometimes it's so fun. So the one way I will say that currently I have really tapped into my creativity is dancing. And if you listened a little bit back to like my childhood and the previous episode where I talked about my health and wellness journey, I tapped a little bit into this. But I basically grew up in dance and gymnastics. So I started dancing at 3. My mom was a dancer into her 40s. She had been a competitive dancer growing up herself as well. So me and my sister started dancing when we turned 3. I then went into gymnastics by the time I was in rec at 6, competitive by 8. I danced till I was like 12. And then as I went into high school, I joined the marching band. I actually marched clarinet my first year, but then I went into color guard. And by the second year in color guard, so my junior year of high school, I was starting to help with choreography. By my senior year, I was coach and I was choreographing. And then in college, I actually choreographed my high school for at least 1 or 2 years while I was there. I did also color guard for only 1 year in college. It was just a lot more of a time commitment that I wasn't willing to make. So I was able to, at least during the times of where middle school got heavy and busy for me, and that's a lot of where I have realized that's where my productivity and worthiness and busyness all came from. I still was tapping into that creative side, at least of dance and choreography, which I love. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. And there's like bits and pieces of me that want to eventually, maybe next year, 2026, host an adult class and teach other people and let them tap into their dance and body and really drop into it. So I've been enjoying that because I just do it kind of randomly here around the house. I do want to dedicate more time. I have not done she calls them artist dates. I have not done very well with those, and it's kind of why this has dragged on the way it has. But that is one of the ways that I kind of thought back to my childhood and what I loved, and dancing is what it is. For anyone who's known me for a while knows that dancing is a thing that I am like absolutely obsessed with, actually. Line dancing, especially when I lived in Nashville. You would think in Texas, but not in Texas. Anyways, I digress from that. So the first thing I would say for you, if you are someone like me who is a shadow artist, who has been struggling to have fun, to play, to tap into your creativity, think back to childhood. And you're going to hear this from so many different people, is thinking back to your childhood and what you enjoyed and what did you have fun. I struggle. Honestly, anything really before about 8 years old, I don't remember very well. So it's really hard for me to tap into something like way, way far back. But I started to think about, okay, what was I doing in middle school and high school? I still was a kid. I still was having fun. I mean, there was stress, there was school, and I still had fun. So think back to any time in your childhood. What did you enjoy doing? Maybe it was drawing. Maybe it was writing. I don't even know. I mean, if you're like my husband, it's gaming all the way, and that's his creative outlet actually as well. And he now doesn't just play. He does play often, but he actually makes games sometimes too, just for the heck of it, like literally to tap into that creativity. The other thing that has been really fun, I mentioned this, I think, in like the last episode or two, is reading. And you might first hear that and be like, oh, what do you mean reading and creativity? But just bear with me a second. Because for the last 2-3 years for sure, I've really been like nonfiction, self-development, personal professional development. How do I build a business? Those are the books I've been reading. And I kind of actually took a complete pause as of towards the beginning of this year. And I wasn't like reading at all. And I wanted to get back into reading, but like never the last 10 years of my life, if not more. At least I can tell you when I went into college, I stopped reading fun books. I was the child growing up who read Harry Potter, Twilight, Divergent. I did the Shadowhunter series of Cassandra Clare, City of Bones. I had to think about what the name was. And then she had like prequels, and I call them postquels because it's a different series and it's set after the original series. I don't know. I could be wrong. I might be butchering it, whatever. I was so into these fantasy, fun, a little bit dystopian, but also just the fantasy side. I mean, Shadowhunters was demons, and Shadowhunters is what she called them. I just loved. I mean, I literally would stay up reading till 2, 3 in the morning some nights. That's like one of those memories I can't remember. If I wasn't watching Grey's Anatomy when I first started watching Grey's Anatomy, like reading was my thing. And I didn't do it for so long. And this might be a little like cliche, but I've mentioned this before. I started reading the ACOTAR series because I had tried reading over the last few years multiple different fiction books. I love historical fiction as well, actually. So I'd finished reading, it's called The Flight Girls. Actually, really, really amazing book because it's based on a true story, but it's fiction based. And I read that one. I think I got it in March, and it took me like a month to read it, but I read it and it was really good. And as of April this year, I had my third person tell me, you need to read ACOTAR. And I was like, oh man. And I have never been into really any types of those books. I know they're calling romantasy, a little smutty, basically, in there. And I started reading and I was hooked. So I started reading the first book on May 8th. I had finished the first 3 books by the time I got back from my cruise after my birthday. So that was around May 20th. And then I read the other 2 over the course of like the next month. But within about 2 months, I read all 5 books in this series. And then Sarah J. Maas has 2 other series as well. I took a break, and then I picked up the other one at the end of July, and I finished all 3 of those books within like a month, and they were massive books. And now I've just started her other series. I'm reading it much slower. It's a little different, and purposefully, I'm slowing myself down a little bit. But reason I am relating me reading these books and just reading in general, especially fiction, is going back to creativity and how sitting and reading a book, even listening, like if you listen to audiobooks, you are getting to imagine this world and create this world in your head. What does it look like? What do the characters look like? What's happening in the fight scenes when they're sitting in their homes, when they're doing X, Y, and Z, whatever it is they're doing? You are really getting to create this world in your head. And I hadn't done that in so long. It's mostly been movies. And movies, there is that creativity to it, but I mean, you're watching it on the screen, you're getting to see it. Versus when you're reading a book, or even writing, if you love to write, you are getting to truly create this world in your head. And I have just leaned so far into it because I didn't realize how much I was missing it. And I honestly have like tipped myself way over leaning into it. I think because it has been so long since I've tapped into that side of my creativity, since I found something I loved so much. And I'm having so much fun with it. Like I'll sit on a Sunday, there's been multiple Sundays the last 4 months, I have sat for hours just sitting and reading and immersing myself into this world. And I might be hiding sometimes. I might be trying to get away from reality and the chaos that I have felt and I have shared with you on the podcast, but it is so much fun. And it's so much fun. And so I recommend that if you love to write, if you love to read, if you haven't done it in a while. And apparently there is this gap. Not the only one. Someone told me this gap between you go into college and like you don't really read these fun books, especially when you are hooked on Harry Potter, Twilight, some of these fiction, fantasy, all that. There's been this gap of where we haven't read for so long. And so I challenge you, if you were a reader growing up, tap back into that. You don't have to read ACOTAR. You don't have to read Crescent City, Throne of Glass, the ones I'm reading right now. There's plenty of options out there, but find something that really intrigues you and read it. Get through the entire book. That's the big thing I say, is just get through the entire book, because it's amazing how that has now supported me in tapping into my intuition, to tapping into my creativity and being able to bring that out now and write so much easier and dance like I haven't ever before, and just showing up anyways a little happier and a little more energetic, even on the tougher days. It's just been so, so fun. So I had to just share that with you today because creativity, I'm still leaning into, I'm still discovering it. I'm still figuring out what more to me there is, especially on the fun and play side that I haven't really tapped into in so long. And I challenge you to do the same thing. Think back to childhood. Think back to the books you used to read. Think back to, did you dance? The sports maybe you did? How can you lean back into those things and bring that into the now? And I would love to hear from you if you've recently started already doing this and like where you're at, what you're finding, or maybe you haven't and you sit back and you start thinking and go do it. So if you sit and you think about something and something comes to mind, go do it. I didn't finish that challenge. Go actually do it. That's the challenge. And then come back to me. Come find me on Instagram. Come drop into my email box. I don't care wherever you drop into, but I want to know like what came through. What did you realize you enjoy doing? How to tap into that creativity, tap into your just enjoyment and fun and the play that maybe you haven't experienced in a while, and share it with me because I really want to know. And if there's someone in your life right now that is a shadow artist, that is somebody who maybe is just struggling and their head is down and they're working nonstop and taking care maybe of their family, and they're maybe even taking care of themselves by all means. Like I took care of myself, but not in a fun and playful way. It was get these things done, check, 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 check. If there's someone in your life like that, that's not you also, please share this episode with them. I want more people to understand that one, they're not alone, but two, like we all have creativity in us. Like when I realized that a year and a half ago, I was like, whoa, I just said I was creative. What? Like, wait a second, what? And there's all of us have that in us. All of us have our intuition. We all have this creativity that we can tap into. It's just starting to play and learn how to tap into it more and more and more. So thank you so much for being here. I always love this. This has actually been fun doing a morning episode, like recording in the morning. You might not be listening to this in the morning, but I'm recording it in the morning. And I just enjoy this so much, getting to share what I'm learning and what I'm going through. And hopefully this helps you, or you can then pass this along or even share it. Just talk to somebody you know that might benefit from this. That is my hope. That is my goal. And I will see you next week on the Success Beyond Strategy podcast.